Hey, everybody. Good morning. My name is John Hansman with Truett and the Business and Bytes podcast host. And super excited because we are officially doing a reboot. I am stoked after, trying to get things started, figuring things out. We decided to go a whole different direction. So you're going to get the pleasure of hanging out with the three of us here in the future. And because I just couldn't get enough of him, I invited Emilio back to be one of the co-hosts because nothing says fun like a guy who lives in Florida. That's just what I'm thinking, right? He's like, yep, that's right. It's
I'm not
warm
gonna
and
argue.
sunny.
I'm not gonna argue. I'm not gonna argue with you there.
and then we've got Ryan Miller from Sundance Networks. He's going to join us as well. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank
Glad
you.
to have
Thank you.
And so here's the reboot. Here's what we're excited about. All three of us are IT guys. All three of us own MSPs. All three of us spend a lot of time helping business owners, CEOs of all different types to grow their business by using technology. So we're going to be providing resources specifically for you, the small, medium-sized business owner, C-level, really anyone who's going to watch us, with a whole bunch of different things. So, of course, we're going to talk about cybersecurity because that's what we do as part of our business. A big part of what's important to us as a group is making sure that our clients are protected. But the other big thing that we're going to be doing a lot of talking about is AI. And AI seems to be one of those things that everybody talks about, but not very many people actually know about it. Here's what I mean by that. I was in a room yesterday with a bunch of people, and I asked the question, how many of you are using AI? So we were in a room of probably 100 people. 50% to 60% of the people in that room raised their hand. Then I asked the question, how many of you are using it to actually make money and save time in your business and be profitable? And all the hands went down except for probably 15%. That's a huge statement. So people know about AI, they're using AI, but they're not using it to move the needle. And this is something that I think all three of us are excited about. So that's going to be a big part of what we're talking about in these future meetings. So today, we're going to be talking about the AI voice. So what that means is we're going to be talking about how do you make AI sound like you. You can tell sometimes when AI, like if you read social media posts, you can tell sometimes when things are AI created. We want to make sure that that's not the case. And then we're going to talk about the $8 million cyber mistake and talk about what that looks like as well, and talk about some cybersecurity tips. So, are you guys ready?
That's good.
I'm ready. Okay, so we're going to start talking specifically about AI and how to use it to create your voice. So we want to talk a little bit about something that executive face. So how do you keep your voice, your tone, and your presence even as you move the business skills and bring AI into your business? How do you keep your marketing, your business sounding like you?
Well, I think it means a lot of things. Primarily, using AI tools to expand your communication. Right. We're not just talking webinars like this one specifically, or podcasts, however we want to label them. Emails, marketing, whether it's your social media or what you're putting out there with like email campaigns or your website. Everyone's using AI now, and everyone's trying to use AI to sound different than someone else. But what we really need to keen in on is, how do we sound different, but how do we sound like we're putting it in our own voice and not the AI voice? You don't want something to sound too robotic. You want to get your Chat GPT or your Plus or just whatever tool or engine or LLM it is that you're using, and you want to train it to sound like you. How do you make it be your own voice, I would say?
Yeah, I agree. So the big question is, how do we do that? I think that's
I think
That's
I think you train it. In some instances, let's say you're using something that's with voice, you can train it exactly with your voice. Like, there's no magic to it. There's a couple things out there that mimic your voice. I believe 11 Labs can do some audio replication, and there's a couple other that you can feed it your voice. There's other that you feed it video, which is voice and video, and then it can replicate you, visually and audio. And then ultimately, the more you talk to your GPT, the more you interact with your GPT, it knows how you like to communicate things and your tone. And I think that can then be used to train whatever model it is that you're going to be used to put information out there.
Yeah, I agree. I think the big thing when we talk about voice is not necessarily John's voice, but we're talking about how do we make sure that when we're using AI to create material, it doesn't sound the same as everybody else's material. Like if we go to ChatGPT, at fresh, never been used by anyone, and ask the same question, it may and possibly will give the same answer. But if you've been using ChatGPT for a while and it's got some memory saved about your business, what you do, how you talk to it, and it's got some of that stuff saved in it, the voice that it gives, the messages that it gives, all that information becomes something that will be different when you start asking questions.
Or you can do something as simple as telling it, hey, sound like this. Hey, sound more like me. Hey, sound like a 5-year-old. Hey, sound like a 15-year-old. Hey, sound like a 40-year-old that, has a British accent. It really, so yeah, which is kind of goes into whatever you tell it, and the more granular you tell it things, is the more detailed that answer would come out. Give us your perspective on that, Ryan.
So, yeah, I mean, keeping your voice is so critical in today's age. And so many people are afraid of losing their voice, not only to AI, but just to the market in general. And from a security perspective, that's also very concerning. There's voice cloning tools out there that can go and talk to somebody on the phone that sounds like an executive or a business owner or the person that manages your office, and can commit fraud that way. And authenticity is good, and we want to keep our authenticity with AI. But the security is evolving every day on AI, and making sure you have good security practices, good security policy around surrounding AI is so critical to doing what we do with AI strategy.
Yeah,
So
I think
real
that's
quick,
important.
I've seen it happen, and I have this idea in my head that one day I'm going to be presenting CSRA. You guys know what I'm speaking about, and the CEO is going to be in the room, and I want a recording of the CEO at the end to kind of sign off on the plan and say, this is approved. Let's go ahead and move forward with it. And then when everybody at the room looks flabbergasted and staring at each other, and I said, you see, if we don't have security systems in place, something like this can lead to a bigger issue. So really quick,
Totally.
if I can touch on both of you, what are ways that we can kind of prevent that, or try to, what would you tell somebody if they're like, hey, I'm scared that someone's going to call me and it's going to be a voice of somebody asking for approval or something like that? John, what would you say?
Okay, so if you're talking about business,
Yeah.
in a business environment, particularly, this is why you want to have like an actual policy in place. You should have an authentication policy for how those types of things happen. In other words, how does money move through your business? Does it move with a voice? Because that's probably not a good idea. Does it move with a PIN? How does money move through your voice to the appropriate channels? And make sure you have some checks and balances to make sure that money doesn't go out without the right approvals. I think that's the biggest thing. If you're prepared and you've got the right policies in place to protect your business, then you're not really going to have those types of things. We know that like human error accounts for 98% of cyber attacks, right? So how do we solve those? We solve it by training, and we solve it by policy. Those are the two main ways that we can fight AI scams or any kind of scams in today's world.
Well said, Ryan. You agree, or do you have anything different than that?
I 100% agree. So the other day, actually, it was late last week, I got a call and it sounded like some actor on TV advertising something like an insurance company. And it sounded exactly like them. I knew it was AI just by the beeps and the bops and the little slurs in the in there. And I was like, wow, what, this is crazy, because I have clients that could just think they're talking to their boss, or think they're talking to one of their channel partners, one of their vendors, or one of their, one of their suppliers, or even one of their clients. And, they could easily transfer a couple $100,000 just based on talking to someone on the phone and saying, oh, transfer that money so we can get the deposit, so we can get this job started.
Yeah.
And scary things have happened. We've had things happen in the past that, I had one that $275,000 almost got transferred from a title company because of an email scam. That is getting so much more sophisticated with AI. And how do we as humans communicate? We communicate by voice. We recognize the inflections in voices and so on. Yep. AI can mimic all that. So having all the policy in place that you mentioned, John, and having the proper strategy in place to make sure things are secure, and then having the technology to back all that up to make sure things are secure, and to make sure you're not losing that.
And I think part of your policy or part of your work culture needs to be urgency doesn't mean we skip steps. Because one of the biggest things we see in email scams, we see it in voice scams, we see it in Indian call centers who call grandmas, right? Urgency. It's always we have to get this done right now. And so if we are putting things in place in our businesses that say urgency doesn't mean we go fast. Urgency means we make sure we do all the right things, but maybe we put it in front of other things. That's really what it might mean. But we still have to do all the steps to make sure that we're actually sending money to the right spot. I think that's the biggest things that we're going to see. Where businesses are going to lose money when it comes to AI scams, it's going to be all around urgency. It's all going to be around, we got to get this money moved today, right? That's what we're seeing in almost every example. In fact, when we do cybersecurity training for businesses, we talk about that all the time. It's like, don't let urgency drive your policy. Let your policy drive your urgent request so that things are streamlined. And you completely know how to make things work.
That was both very good, guys. Thank you. I think we should just a note for us on our next show. I think we should cover policies and maybe have some samples out there. I've had some of my clients reaching out to me because of what John said. Everyone's saying let's not get left behind. Let's not get left behind, and everybody wants to run, but we're not crawling and we're not walking yet. So definitely things that we need to boxes we need to check off.
Yeah. And how do you create policy? Like that. I mean, and here's the great thing. We're talking about it now. We live in this world where you can totally use AI to create policy. Now you need to have some checks and balances, and you need to look it through. You don't want to just be like, hey, ChatGPT, create me a really cool policy on this. And then just put it out in the wild. You want to make sure you're reading it thoroughly. You want to make sure a lawyer looks at it. An HR specialist looks at those things. But you can save a lot of time and create policy. And I think that's where you talk with one of us or somebody like us, and you can get with one of us and you can actually have us sit down with you. I don't know about you guys, but part of our plans when we're building out our cybersecurity managed IT plans, we include policy support. We don't create policy necessarily, but we create that support. So if somebody has questions, what policies should I have? We can give them a starting place.
And sitting down next to your client and running through the scenarios of all the policies, possible scenarios that can go bad, scenarios that are awesome, scenarios that are great. Sitting down with with your client and your customers sitting down with you, getting to the table with your IT professional or your AI strategist is so important, because you need to go through that. You need to walk through it step by step and say, oh, okay, this one step doesn't make sense. This step needs to be changed to this, or this step is awesome. We need to thread that through this whole policy to make that policy be what it should be. And then bouncing that policy off of your professional that's working with you, like one of us, or any professional that would have knowledge of the policies.
100%. And you just have to make sure you have something in place. And we find that most businesses don't. They don't have any policies about most things in place, or they haven't looked at it for 10 years if they're an older business. Like, oh yeah, we had a policy back in 1996. Yeah, and you're like, well, lots of things have changed since 1996, right? Like AI wasn't even a thing. The internet was barely a thing. And all of social media. Think about things like social media, like this generation that's coming up now, like my son's generation, who knows what his world's gonna look like. But anybody who's a teenager in high school or middle school or whatever today, they grew up with social media just being part of their world.
And AI is like feeding them with so many things,
Totally.
that impressionable mind and keeping that straight in the head of what's real and what's not real is
It's
so
gonna
important.
it's gonna be interesting to see how schools deal with that. Like
Yeah.
how do they actually deal with the power of AI? Are they going to teach it? Which I think they should. I think they should have a mixture of, you need to know these things, but here's how you use AI to you got to know stuff, because AI is not 100% fail proof, right? It still lies a little bit. So you got to be smart enough to know the difference. But we should be learning how to utilize it as part of our main world that we live in, because it's so powerful.
Maybe a controversial opinion, but not only do I think they need to teach it, I think it needs to be a well-documented part of their curriculum where students learn how to prompt AI, right? AI is going to be able to do everything by the time they graduate. It's going to be able to code. It's going to be a lot more accurate than it is right now. So teaching somebody to code right now is almost a waste. If I can go into something like Bolt.new and say, hey, create an application just like Spotify, and it's going to fully code it for me, within hours, and maybe just with some troubleshooting on top. So
yeah, 100%.
Teaching somebody how to be able to program and create that might be a waste. Now, teaching somebody how to prompt AI to get the output that you want, that's going to move the needle, I think that's where the key is. I think that's what some of us have learned over the last couple months that have shifted us into new solutions that we're providing to clients. Even more, just even having this podcast right here.
Yeah, totally. I think that's the thing where, like, we're really trying to teach businesses, for one, you should be thinking about this. Like, this is something you should be adopting into your business if you want to be ahead of the competition, if you want to move the needle. But then we also want to do it in a really smart way and be wise about how we move.
And you don't want to be put out of business by another competitor coming into your area, going into business and using AI to just like jump over your company by 10 times. Right. That's really a concern. AI is coming. It's like a snowball coming down the 10,000 foot mountain.
I think this is one of maybe the first times where, depending on what the business is, obviously, but if you're a business who's been around for a long time and you're not adopting it, you could get surpassed. Like, this actually I think it does present a real threat to even people who've been in business a long time.
I mentioned to you guys backstage that I had the show last week, John, and I would say the show was split up into 33% of three things and then 1% of something else, and it was IT, cybersecurity was number one, digital marketing was number two, and AI in different type of products. So AI for job recruiting, AI for receptionists, AI for this, AI for that. And let me tell you, it felt like the digital marketing and the IT and cybersecurity people, we were like the afterthought. Like all the talks and all the panels on AI, all the chairs were full, people were standing. When it came to us, people would listen, but we're definitely an afterthought.
Hmm.
So it's definitely here. And as Ryan said, people feel if I don't jump on this wagon, I'm gonna get left behind. So
Totally.
how fast can we move?
Yeah, but you got to do it smart. Again, you should have a sense of urgency, but you want to do it in a way that makes sense. Like you don't want to just jump
So
and not and give your data away to a company that's not trustworthy.
So, John, tell me about this $8 million mistake that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, so think about, like most scams in today's world, it all begins with an email. The world that we live in literally begins with cybersecurity incidents coming from email. 96% of it. I mean, the numbers are staggering. But it ends with an $8 million wire transfer.
That's it.
Now, I don't have $8 million. That's a lot of freaking money. So in this case, we have a hacker who impersonated the CFO into a believable, well-timed attack right before payroll. Now, believe it or not, I've seen this in real life, but on a smaller scale. I had a client who was an electrical contractor who had their email impersonated. They broke in, got into their Dropbox, figured out who they were banking with, changed all of their direct deposits, and then just waited for payroll. They didn't do anything else. They didn't send out a bunch of emails. They just did the dirty deed of changing all the information. Somehow their bank allowed it to happen. And they lost their whole payroll for all their team, all to a foreign bank. The way they found it was one of the owners woke up in the morning to look at his banking account and noticed that his deposit of his owner draw didn't happen. And then he started getting phone calls from other people saying the same thing. So this is a very, very similar thing. And I pivoted away from our initial example because I have a life one. And it really starts with a business email compromise. And so what people might wonder is, what is a business email compromise? There's two different ways. It used to be where somebody would get into your computer, because all your email was on your computer, they would just basically steal it off your computer. Today, because we're all on the cloud, we're seeing business email compromises happening on a regular basis. In fact, according to the FBI, it was a $3 billion loss to small businesses in 2023. We probably will see it at 3 to 5 billion in the next year or so. And simply a business email compromise is where somebody who doesn't belong in your email has logged in as one of your people, or you in some cases, and now they have access to all of your email assets. Now, if you're on Microsoft or Google, that could also mean they have access to your OneDrive or your Google Drive. Business email compromises, left unchecked, can do real big damage to businesses because they can literally steal your information.
I have a question I want Ryan to address for the public. I get this a lot, and I know my answer. I want to hear Ryan's. Ryan, the user says, "Hey, I don't need your cybersecurity service. I have antivirus on my computer." How do you explain to them how they can be business email compromised, even if they have the best antivirus in the world?
While antivirus is important to your infrastructure, to everything, there's a whole defense in depth that we have and that we use for clients. Just like I'm sure you do with all your clients, we're doing this every single day. And as soon as we think we have it as an industry, the cyber criminals out there just find a way around it, and we develop new technologies. We modify our old technologies to catch this. And getting back to the speed of how things just happen in the world, in the cyber criminal world, in the dark web, that scary dark web that we all hear about. So at the speed at which things happen, AI is just making this, very, very difficult to keep up with, but we are able to keep up with it by using AI on the counterintelligence side. And we're using AI in our defenses, and the industries that we serve are getting afforded this AI to help go counteroffensive towards it.
Yeah.
So I got this a lot last week at my show, and I like to pride myself in telling people sometimes I help them translate tech into English. And I was letting them know, yes, you can have an antivirus on your computer, and while we always recommend having one, specifically a good one that's monitored, that's one layer of security, and we put in different layers of security. And that layer is for something is installed on your computer to deploy a package, it will be intercepted. But when someone sends you an email for you to put your password into a system that in the back end they're going to receive the credentials, that's not something that an antivirus is covering, right? And I know we're moving a little bit off the AI topic, but I just wanted to kind of sew those two things together.
Okay, we're cybersecurity people. We got to talk about that too.
That's why. So just to tie those together, business email compromises, you can have a lot of security things in place, but the way to catch business email compromises is, number one is training, I would say, absolute training. Number two is having some type of MFA, so that when that person goes to put in credentials into a system, they're prompted for the MFA. If they're not prompted for whatever reason, or if it's not linking to a page that they're familiar with, that means that maybe somebody is redirecting or rerouting them. And of course, an anti-spam filter, if it's a good one and it scans URL, that can work. But yeah, I just wanted the audience to know that just because you have a good AV program, it's not going to stop a business email compromise.
And that's because antivirus is local to the computer. And we're talking about services that are in the cloud.
Correct.
So you have to distinguish the difference, because so much of what we do is in the cloud now. And it was funny because I feel like 6 months ago, it was like the thing I was hearing the most, well, everything's in the cloud, it's secure. Well, the cloud is only as good as secure as your passwords and your two-factor.
Thank goodness we have the technologies today that are now available to us just in the last 6 months to a year that can connect the security out in the cloud to the stuff back in our offices.
Totally.
And we have those technologies now that talk between the cloud. Those weren't available even a couple years ago. And those technologies, without them, we cannot be sure that all the things are talking, and all of the bits and bops are all talking to each other and saying, hey, this is going on out in the cloud. Okay, now what's happening in my office, or on my premise, or on my computer that I'm traveling with? So those technologies that are out there now are just amazing, and they're just getting better by the day. And they're using AI again to counter what all the cyber are doing.
They are responsible. Those services are responsible for stopping 6 business email compromises this year for us.
Ryan, you had a recent win on the ransomware side. Am I correct there?
Yeah, I did. About 2-3 months ago, we had a vacation timeshare company that we do work for, and on a Saturday morning at 3:05 a.m., yes, in the middle of the night, we get a call alerting us about a active ransomware attack. And it was our SOC, our Secure Operations Center, that actually stopped an attack within less than 10 seconds that was happening. What had happened was somebody's computer was stolen for this client. Crazily, they had their password on a piece of tape on the laptop, which I just couldn't believe it. We preach this in our security training and awareness to not do this. We send out email reminders. We have them doing video training, but somehow his password was on there, and his MFA to log into his laptop was somehow it worked. I think the cyber criminal just looked at his phone, because he said he was at like a business pod place where he just had his laptop, and he was out of country. And what happened was the hacker stole his computer, got on and actually infected it. And this is a real world thing. So at like 7 a.m. in the morning, we're dealing with going through this torrential downpour. and going through the woods because the street was closed. So one of my director of operations was going through the woods, going to get to the server that we couldn't get to remotely because it was down. And the fortunate thing is it encrypted a few files, but they were low-hanging fruit. We were able to totally re-image the server within 1 hour. And within 4 hours, we got things back up and running. Had that not happened, that would have been 2 weeks of recovering everything for all 30 of their employees. Not to mention their ridiculous loss of trust and reputation to the business. And who knows what the money loss is. Now, that all being said, now we don't allow any computer to connect to this network, or we actually go through on a monthly basis, and this company has us looking at all their computers, making sure there's no passwords anywhere. And I know this sounds so simple, but the sweep for half an hour every month to go through all their computers, including getting on Zoom or Teams with the remote users and having them show us their workspace. But it's a practice that they decided to put in place based on our recommendation, and it's really solved a lot of things, and it made them wake up. It made them understand that we have to be safe. So security is just so crazy. So crazy.
Wow.
I agree.
It's crazy how many people put sticky notes on things. It's just so nuts.
Sticky notes are crazy, and having those good password keeping programs is like so important to have, that encrypt things and those kind of things.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's super important, and I think most people just underestimate just the tools that are out there and that can literally stop things. Even firewalls. So one of the guys, Skylar, who's watching us, made a comment. He said it'd be cool to explain the benefits of having probably configured cloud firewall. He's more of a techie guy, so he's going all sophisticated. But I think having a good firewall, having either a cloud firewall like some of what we install on our clients who are remote, is super important because you can actually see that traffic happening. You can see when, and this person recently was dealing with this. He was literally dealing with a compromise on a firewall for a company that runs a POS. Then they provided the firewall, and they were like, "Well, our side's good, the POS side's good, but their firewall is controlling the other side. They got compromised." It's like one of those things where a properly configured firewall, especially one that's up to date, like so many firewalls, they get compromised, not because of 0 day. They just get compromised because people didn't do recent updates to them. And I think that's a huge thing that is low-hanging fruit that can totally save a business if they actually just do the updates on their computers, do the updates on their firewalls and all their equipment, just to make sure that things like that. Unfortunately, you guys had tools in place, but we know all too often that's not.
And changing the default passwords on your firewalls. Changing the default passwords. You don't know how often we bring on board a new client, and we go into their firewall and they don't have the password, and we go online, we find the default password, type in, and I'm like, how have you not been hacked?
It's bad that you had to bring that up right now.
Yeah, it is. We shouldn't even be talking about that in 2025.
To piggyback off of that and what Skylar Tanner mentioned here in our comments, and thanks for watching and participating, Skylar. A lot of these companies, especially since COVID, remember the remote workers, the people that want to work at Panera for the day, at Starbucks for the day. If there's nothing on that device that says that traffic should route in a certain way or be encrypted or transmitted in a certain way, then you're just going through the public network at Starbucks or Panera. Anybody there with any type of that's there to do something malicious can see the information that you're working on and what you're transmitting. So it's not only having a cloud firewall or something on site, but something on the actual endpoints that no matter where they're at, their traffic is routing through that cloud firewall, whether it's DNS, cloud, whether it's a SASE application, something in those terms.
The advantage to that too is if you're in a server environment, you actually get VPN by default, which is really nice.
Yeah,
So and
having proper intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems. Just stuff you need. I mean, it sounds like we're just throwing all this spaghetti against a wall and hoping it sticks, but the spaghetti needs to stick, and the spaghetti needs to protect us.
And it really needs to be built out for the business, specific to their needs, and making sure. I think this is the biggest thing we see in retail environments is that they pay money to a POS company. I was literally just having this conversation with a bar. People own a bar and a coffee shop and whatnot. I won't tell you what city because it'd be obvious who it is, but because it's a small place. But their POS company is like, well, we can provide a firewall, but we're only going to manage our side. Like if you have a guest network and you have all this other stuff, we're not going to manage any of those computers on there. We're only going to manage our iPads, our tablets, our POS endpoint machines. But as far as the other network that we created for you, you're on your own.
Everybody wants to play
their POS company even was like, hey, I recommend you work with an IT company because we don't want to be responsible for the other part.
Yeah, I see that all the time. We have a small pizza chain we support that has 3 restaurants, and they have a separate router for their whole point of sale system. And sure, that might keep that safe, but they just say, oh, we don't want to deal with that because that is the security of the restaurant, and the restaurant needs to take care of all that. And they think, just like you say, oh, I'm in the cloud, I'm secure. They think, oh, I have this router and I am safe. Sure, it costs money, but it's going to cost a lot more money if we don't have those protection in place.
I was talking to a CPA this morning who has had to downsize her business significantly because she got compromised and it was costing her so much money. She was just losing the ability to pay vendors and losing the money to pay employees and all of that. So
I mean, they'd be open to like a video testimony so that we can use that, not in a bad way, but sometimes you have to use somebody's hurt to, so that somebody else doesn't go through that, right? It's kind of like with your kids, right? Hey, don't touch the stove or don't touch the iron, right? I'm telling you because it's happened to other people and it's happened to me. Don't burn yourself. But here we go, and we're going to do it anyway sometimes.
Well, there's a lot of shame wrapped around in that. And I literally talked with her and I was like, hey, look, we see this all the time. Yeah, and it's hard to keep up. So don't feel bad. And she's like, it's hard talking about it because I almost lost my whole business.
People are saying nobody rushes to social media. Nobody rushes to social media to brag about being hacked.
No, funny enough, it was a social media scam.
Yeah, that's why I say no one's. You're not too small to get hacked. You're just too small to make the news.
Yeah, totally.
Everyone can get hacked. Just no one's gonna know about it.
Yeah.
100%. Well, let's move on to our next segment. One of the things that we're gonna do in this next segment, which I think this is just plain fun, is we're gonna talk a little bit about how you can use AI outside of business. So we call this segment logo for it, just because it sounds like a lot of fun. But we're going to talk about a couple AI tricks that you can use in your regular world to make life easier. So, Emilio.
All righty, I think I have one here. So let's say you're home, you're hungry, you haven't done groceries, you have 6 or 7 random items, maybe less, in your fridge. What if you just kind of word salad all those things that are in your fridge into your AI, and then you ask it, what meal can I make with this? Right? It might be something cold. It might be something you have to cook. But let's say you're like, I have eggs, rice, and broccoli. Give me 3 quick meals that I can make, and then voila, you have an output without having to go to the grocery store, I would say. I think that's one everybody can use in their regular lives.
I'm sure AI would give us about 30 different recipes. The only thing I could think of would be fried rice.
Ryan, you got something?
Yeah, another one. And I've actually used this in a real world scenario. I had a friend that was traveling from Denver to Sedona, and they were like, they called me because I live in New Mexico, in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and they called me and they said, "Hey, what is there to do?" And I'm like, I don't drive that road that often. But what I did, and I didn't even tell them this, I went into my AI that I use all the time, and I said, give me 5 waypoints or 5 scenic areas between Denver and Sedona, and I want hidden gems. And boom, comes back with 5 hidden gems. I pasted it in their text, and gave it to them, and they said, "Oh, thanks." And about a week later, I got a text, and they said, "Wow, I didn't even know any of this existed. I went to this path like 6 times, and I never knew this existed. But AI found it for them, and they use this in their personal life." And then I saw them a couple months later, and I sat down with them and I showed them how to use the prompts for that, because they travel a lot, and I get all these like itineraries now from them all the time on the things they're doing, because they're just like amazed how AI works. AI blows my mind every day. Even though we have a lot of security things we have to worry about, every time I build anything with an AI, every time one of my team builds anything in AI, we're just like blown away to this day. And we're technologists, but it still blows us away.
Yeah, it's so true. Here's one of the things I'm using, which is actually off script from what we had in our show notes. But our kid, if you follow me on Facebook, you know this, had hand, foot, and mouth. If you've ever experienced that, it sucks. It's horrible. Like, it was bad. I got it too, but my symptoms were way less. My kid was covered in sores inside his mouth, in his throat. He wouldn't eat anything but warm mac and cheese for like 3 days. And he just looked, he still even has skin discoloration from it. And it's been like 4 weeks, But I used AI through the whole process to fully understand his symptoms. And then when I got sick, to fully understand what to expect. And it was pretty darn spot on. Like, I would give it my temperature reading and it would say, like, well, here's what's happening. Here's what you can expect over the next couple of days. And it was pretty darn close. Now, symptoms vary, right? Because some people get more sick than others. But it was amazing how you could just put in data, and I put in data on that chat over the time of being sick. And it was like, okay, well, now you can expect to experience this. And it was weird because hand, foot, and mouth, even when you're an adult, is very methodical. Like, it's not like a cold that everything comes on at once, or a flu. It was like, first you get a temperature, a fever. And then after the fever's gone, something happens. Then after that goes away, something else happens. It was very like it was like your body flips off a switch, flips something on, and it was just this crazy thing. And AI like nailed it as I was describing my symptoms over the 3-day period that I had to go through it. And it was right on. And it kind of helps you get, now it always is smart. It was always like, well, you should talk to a medical professional, which I would recommend. But it was really helpful in the moment to find solutions to the problems that we were facing, and to know, what to expect. So that was a really cool.
John, could you imagine like going into a doctor's office, and before you got there, you interacted with a chat bot that gave you some different things, and then you show up, and then the doctor's like, "Here, I got all your symptoms. I've got all your, what our AI bot says, and now I'm going to give you the added sauce that you need to take care of that." And I see AI going in that direction.
Already doing it. So I'm wearing the Plod. We were talking about this in the, I dropped it in the green room beforehand. And so this thing literally records conversations and then it interprets with AI. I keep getting ads for the medical plan for this. So they're literally talking about, and then my doctor has walked in with his phone and recorded our conversations, and then creating notes from those conversations. Plods, we're talking about the same thing, where you literally walk in with it and record the notes, and they could search in real time based on the symptoms and all of that stuff. So we're coming up on that. And not to say that doctors are going to be obsolete, because I don't think that's going to be the case. But like most things, it's going to make their job a lot easier and make things faster.
But doctors can also concentrate on you and not be stuck in a computer typing all their notes and not looking at you to see what's going on with you. They can actually focus on the patient and getting back to really good patient care. I think AI will bring a lot of that to the medical field.
Yeah. So, well, awesome, guys. This has been a great show. I want to keep it within our time frame, and I look forward to next week when we meet again to talk about some more cybersecurity related, AI related topics. And the hope is that we start to see more people as we get this rebooted using us as a resource to move the needle in their business. That's the goal. We help you guys add bottom line revenue by learning how to use AI properly. And we're going to be doing events ourselves. And next week, let's talk. We're going to introduce. We talked about one of the tools that we have, the friction finder that we created. We'll introduce that next week and use it as a case study.
Yeah, I think if we cover policies, friction finder, and as usual with our other Business Bytes podcast before we rebooted last year, if you have anything you want to hear us talk about, any topics that you want us to cover, go ahead and send us a message, make a comment, anything. And if we have time to put it in the next episode, we will. But if not, the next episode after that is something that we can definitely cover.
Sounds awesome, guys. Well, thanks very much for joining us. Those of you who joined us online, and join us next week. This will be out on all the major platforms. We'll have it on Apple, Spotify, and all that as well. So definitely follow us there. If you're like me and you listen to podcasts in the car, this is a great way to do that as well. So look forward to seeing you guys next week. And thanks for being with us.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thanks.